Hi, my name's Drew Monson. If you've never seen my videos before, this is going to be a very strange way to be introduced to me. You know when YouTubers say like, I never thought I'd be making this video, and you know you're about to get something good, like something chunky, like Giddy Up Cowboy? I always knew I'd be making this video. I just didn't know when. I do realize it sounds like I'm about to do a really stupid joke right now. I swear I'm not. Actually, maybe I should. You know what? Because I am nervous. I'm just gonna Google SpongeBob jokes. Okay, how can you make Squidward laugh? Give him 10 tickles. That's actually really funny. I actually just started screaming. That being said, do not tickle Squidward, let alone 10 times. He'll grab you by the neck. Sorry, I'm stalling. What does Squidward say after telling a joke? I'll give you a second. I'm just squidding. The only problem with that is he doesn't say that. Like if Squidward said, I'm just squidding, Patrick would be like, what's gotten into you? Like you're usually so cruel. No, what I was going to say is that, I'm SpongeBob. Sorry, I'm nervous. No, I'm a drug addict, and an alcoholic. For real, of sorts. Let me explain. And the biggest reason I want to talk about this right now, honestly, is I've left YouTube again, and I'm back again for like the 10th time, and every single time I come back and say that I was really depressed, or I've been going through a hard time and I went crazy, and that may be true, but I always leave out the fact that I was getting very high and very drunk, and that I have a very hard time not doing that when I struggle, and it makes me struggle more. I know that some of you guys are watching this like, okay, like what do you want me to do? Like go to a therapist right now. And I imagine there's also some of you that are like, I knew it. He's a bad boy. Look at the beanies. It's always been the beanies. That's not about his hairline. Like, there's paraphernalia in there. I think some of you might be wondering, like, wait, does that mean you've been high during your content? Not that often, actually, but it has happened. I was definitely high for this Instagram picture. Very high for this one. I was half blackout for this video. Full blackout for this one. No, but for real, I remember I realized like, oh, I seem to have uploaded a video called My Apartment Tour. I don't know what that contains. I know people say this a lot, but I truly never have clicked a notification so fast. The relief that I felt when I realized it wasn't just me like sitting nude on my coffee table mumbling about furniture or something. Like I thought maybe I fell down halfway through and hit the upload button with my head. I didn't know. By the way, I do realize that stories like that are actually kind of disturbing and sad. I do take stuff like this like very seriously in my personal life, but you also can't help but laugh at that sweater. Like why is it a turtleneck sweater? I think some of you might be seeing this and honestly kind of going, oh, like, okay, I don't know what to do with this. Like I realize and I'm very aware of the fact that addicts don't have like the best reputation in the sense of like every sense. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I have always been the greatest person in the world or friend and haven't hurt and disappointed the people around me and the people I care about. I'm sure you haven't though, King. What are we doing? Sorry. But I feel compelled to talk about what happened for a lot of reasons. One of them being I'd like to attempt to refresh the honest relationship I used to feel between me and whoever you are that I kind of lost. This is getting so serious. It is serious, but I also want to do another SpongeBob joke. Why is SpongeBob the main character? Okay, this one isn't in like a question and answer format. It's just like a sentence. Why is SpongeBob, okay, this is good. Why is SpongeBob the main character when Patrick's the star? Kind of dumb though, because with that logic, like my name's Drew Monson because I'm the Monson, but like that's just what my dad said I had to be. I'm Drew Monson. Thanks, Dad. I didn't want to be that. You know what I mean? I also want to say this really fast. I do have an album coming out in April on this day. I've been working really, really hard on it for the past like 8 or 9 months since I left YouTube. And you can skip ahead now. I won't be mad, but right now I'm just gonna dance a little bit and play 2 30-second clips of the songs that are out on streaming services everywhere now. And there's a link down there. You can just look up Drew Monson. Here we go. You can like, you know, go on TikTok or whatever. It's fine. I'm just gonna dance for a minute. We can both do our thing and listen in the background. If it catches your fancy, save it to a playlist or whatever.
I told him I'm not afraid of dying. I'm scared of me. I wanna see the sunset. I'm ready to sleep. I'm not afraid of crying when I'm on the street. I wanna see the sunset and I'm half asleep. I'm half asleep. It's typical. I don't want a typical mind in a hole, but still I have an interesting time. I had a moment with my long lost funny.
So yeah, those ones are available now. I hope you like them. If you could do anything for me ever, if you could pre-save the album, there's like a link down there. It's pretty easy. It doesn't cost any money. I don't really make any money from my music, by the way. I just want as many people as possible to hear it because I think it's pretty good. Okay, here we go for real. I am nervous that you're gonna judge me for some of this. Having it all laid out on the table at once like this is gonna look a little bit wild, and it a little bit was, but it's all I've got because it's what happened. So happy birthday. If it is. Weird gift to give yourself. Why are you watching this? Just a little bit of context here, really fast, because I know it's pretty boring when anyone talks about their childhood, right? Like, unless you're in love with them, it's sort of like, why? But just so you know, I had never touched anything in my life until I was 20. Like, nothing. And I was firm on it. Like, I had put my foot down. I know that, like, almost everybody has drug and alcohol issues within their family in some way. Like, it's not unique. Like, everyone has a messed up family in some way, but there's having a messed up family in some way, and there's having a messed up family in almost every way. Like there's, yeah, you know, honestly, I think my dad did struggle with some depression, and then there's like, when you ask your parents about your family history, there's a certain point where they go, actually, I can't think of anyone that you're related to on either side that hasn't been 5150'd. Or like, you know, drank alcohol every morning for breakfast until the day they died, right? So I grew up like, I'm gonna take the high road, I'm not gonna touch any of this ever. I was so sure about it. And then I moved to Los Angeles. I remember I had $12,000 because I'd saved up $6,000 from acting and YouTube videos, and my parents had $6,000 that they gave me as a college fund. And I decided to go to the college of hanging out with people, you know, 10 years older than you who also didn't go to college. Which I will say had less homework, you know. But it was going well. Like, I was living my dream, or some version of it. And I had friends, you know, I had support, I had fun, but it was also complicated. When you're a YouTuber, especially at that time for me, your friends are also like your coworkers. And that balance can get really emotionally confusing. And also just the balance between what my real life was and what was becoming like this TV show that I was a part of, because I'm in this person's video, they're in my video, and it's just like this collection of very popular shows that had like the attention and popularity and pressure as like a show that you would like see on TV, sometimes even seen by more people, but just with not much structure to it. It was just sometimes like a few people hanging out. And looking back, it was a little bit messy and it was a little bit scary for me. Like, none of it's the worst thing that could ever happen to somebody, but it was enough to knock a sensitive person like me on their face. On bottom? What do people say? On their ASS, but I wouldn't. I shouldn't. Could I? Ask. I will just say, overall, I was just not fully equipped to handle everything that was going on. And when you're not fully equipped to handle something, you really have like two options. One, you equip yourself, you figure out how to handle it, and you do that. Two, you just freak out and you run around and you knock things over and over again. I'm sitting on the edge of my bed now. The first time I ever got high was kind of an accident. I was like casually talking to one of my friends about how I couldn't sleep anymore, and they offered me a sleeping pill, and I should have said no. And they warned me, they were like, this is pretty heavy duty. Like, I remember they told me to turn my phone off before I took it because I might call my ex in the middle of the night and forget about it. And I was kind of like, it's fine. Like, I already call my ex in the middle of the night. Like, I'm nuts. Like, I'm a nuts guy. I took it, I didn't really think of it like I was about to do drugs. I just thought of it like when you go to the dentist and they give you that little mask that makes you feel really good, and you kind of like want to ask for it even when you're just getting a checkup, but you know they'll like put you on a list or something. So I took it, and I remember I woke up and I had a feeling that I had never had before, which is like, what happened last night? And then I did some 21st century detective work on myself and looked at my phone browser internet history. And I remember I saw that I had looked up on YouTube videos to watch when you're high. And I was like, oh yeah, I had a really good time last night. Like, there was a party happening in my bed, and even I was barely invited. I pretty much immediately started asking everyone I knew for more sleeping pills. Like, I wanted more. I remember my friend said her brother might be able to get me some, but I wasn't at that point yet. Like, I really don't like people's brothers. Like, even if I really want something, I don't want to, like, text a brother. So I wasn't able to get any, and at that point, I started considering something that if you had told me just like 2 years previously that I would ever consider this, I would have slapped you and told you you were hurting my feelings really bad. I was like, I think I'm gonna try some wonka wonka, some ha ha ha. Some la la la, I can't hear you. I was one of those kids that like went out of their way to be uncool about weed in high school. Like I was dating someone in high school who started smoking weed a lot, and I was like, why are you doing this to me? Like, it was dramatic. I was like, you smell funny again, and it's tearing us apart. And I thought you didn't like dubstep. Why are you always talking about hyphy now? But I had decided, like, I want to do it. I told one of my friends, I made it like an event. They had somebody bring some over. It was Easter Sunday. And you know how people will say, like, the first time you smoke, it doesn't work. Like, don't expect it to work the first time. No, it works. I don't know what that logic is, by the way. Like, there's a cannabis receptor levy in your blood cells that has to, like, be really rattled to break. It's not real. Like, no, if you toke, you'll get blitzed. I'll tell you what. Especially if you do it like I did it the first time, which was to ingest it, like, 3 different ways and do way too much of each of them. I hit the vape, which you should never do, by the way. Just, like, in general, I don't think there's any legitimate reason to ever hit the vape. No matter what's in there, even if it's empty, don't suck on that thing. There's at least 200 people that are watching this right now who are like, why does he see me? I did like 3 big and then someone gave me like an edible THC spray. All of this is a bad idea. Let me make it very clear. This is a bad idea. I sprayed it like 5 times in my mouth. Like I was just like, I don't know, this is my new life. Edibles are intense. I hate that I'm saying that in a YouTube video right now, but it's true. There's people I know that smoke more than like anyone I've ever met, and they're still like, I would never do an edible, like I'd rather be shot in a forest. And I remember I felt nothing. I was like, I guess it doesn't work. They were right. And I laid down on my friend's couch and I just turned on Mac DeMarco music, which was probably the right thing to do. Like Mac DeMarco makes music for people who just smoked weed for the first time. But I remember I was listening to it and I was like, why is this so slow? Like I heard this song before and Mac doesn't work at this tempo. Like no one would be able to skateboard to this. What's going on? And then for the next like 7.5 hours, that was probably actually like 45 minutes, life just felt like a really slow Mac DeMarco song. Or a fast one. Like I straight up freaked out, but like in different ways. Like I freaked out in the way of like, dude, you really just freaked me out, but also in the way of like that song that goes, freak out. Like it was also like a, okay. Like I was scared, like there was euphoria there, but I was mostly just feeling really out of control. But at the same time, during that point in my life especially, I think I was more scared of having control. I was sort of sick of it. Like it was terrifying, but I think I was in a place where I was okay just like stepping onto the roller coaster, but like one of those county fair ones that just like beats you up and you get off of it and you're like, how old am I? Like why does my vertebrae sting? It was the scariest mental experience of my life, but the good parts of it felt worth it to me for some reason. Cause like bad stuff will find you when you're in a bad place, you know? Like if you're uncomfortable most of the time and you're offered something that takes you somewhere else, even if it's sort of a horror show, somewhere else is good enough. And a few days later, I got my medical marijuana card. I said that almost like it was sentimental, like I had accomplished something, like it was my GED. And I did it online. I remember I video chatted with the doctor who just like gave them out all day, I guess, but I thought it was like more serious. Like I had a whole speech prepared, like I was opening up. I was like, I think I've always had like an inner restlessness and kind of turmoil. It sort of started maybe second. He was like, it's fine. Yeah, we're already done. Like I emailed it to you before we even started talking. Like you're good. And yeah, I was off and running. For the next like 3 or 4 years, I was high all of the time. Like if you met me during that period, I was either high or I was high because I had been so high recently it hadn't worn off. I would fall asleep like with my vape pen underneath my pillow like a little tooth. Like I couldn't do anything without it. Like it was like my little Toy Story Woody doll when I was a child. Like he came everywhere with me. And it wasn't just like, oh, I can't eat without smoking weed. It was like, I can't eat a bite of food without smoking weed. Like, I would literally sometimes, I would open up the vape cartridge with a pair of scissors and dump out all the stuff onto my pasta like it was olive oil, just to see what would happen. And what would happen is I would get really high on my pasta. I don't recommend this at all, by the way. Like, I got to a point where I swear I thought I just couldn't talk anymore. I was like, I think I have a brain tumor. Like, that's all that this could be. And of course I thought that, because when you're so attached to something, you're not gonna blame anything on it, because then you lose your coping mechanism. Everything in my life was like, this feels so bad, and it was kind of because I was high. I'd be like, I should get high and try and fix it. And if you were watching me like from space with a high-tech telescope, you'd be like, no, that's the thing that's doing it. And my biggest problem with it is my brain works like this. If I take something and I don't like the way it makes me feel, a normal person would go, I don't like that. I'm gonna sit on my phone and like look at images until it wears off. But I go, maybe if I do more of it or a different type of it, it'll cancel out somehow. Let me try that over and over again. Just constantly having panic attacks that I didn't even think would be possible. Like, they were intense. They were like directed by Steven Spielberg. Just every day a few times being like, here it comes, the afterlife. People talk about it a lot. I'm about to experience it. Let's find out what happens in the afterlife. That should be interesting, if anything. I'm about to pass on because I consumed too hefty a dose of Gorilla Glue number 4. And the thing with weed is, like, I'm not against it overall. Like, there are people, I think, that even every day, like, they just know how to do a little bit all throughout the day, and it just keeps them, like, a little bit centered. But if you don't know how to moderate, you're just, like, having intense psychedelic experiences all throughout your day that nobody could handle. And just like asking too many questions in my head, like I'd be walking down the street just like, who says I'm not gonna fall down right now, even if I don't want to? Who makes that choice? Not me. And why am I walking down the street? Like, why would a guy do that? No, do you ever think about that? That I'm walking down the street? Well, who isn't? Who's in a car and who's on the street? These are the things I'm thinking about. And by the way, if you followed my career for a long time, you might be wondering, like, how did you get the stuff that you were doing even done? Like, you were on podcasts, or you were in this, and you were in this person's video. I wouldn't, 99% of the time, I would not smoke weed and then go in front of a camera or a microphone. But I always had weed brain. Like, weed brain takes like a month to get away from. I think like a big chunk of my creativity was just laying dormant during that time, which is why when people bring up stuff that I was in or videos I was in during those years, I'm not like ashamed of it, but there is a part of me that just sees the fact that like I wasn't what I know I can be, and I'm glad that it's like, oh, look at this weird guy running around or whatever, but I'm like, ugh, I was just like, I don't know what that is. I think weed works for some people, but if you're like me, it can just be another tool in your belt of ways to self-sabotage. It was just something else that I was doing to like ruin my own life. And then I started taking pills. I'm sitting in my living room now on my silver couch. Is this interesting? So I just took a walk in between filming this video, and I swear to you, I passed by a woman who was on the phone and said, as I passed by her, "This weirdo always walks by when I walk by." I don't know why. I know your first reaction is probably like, well, give us more information here. Like, how were you walking? Let's be honest. Like, were you going, no. I was texting. That's so normal. I don't get it. Like, is this what true crime does to people? That like, I can't take a stroll in the vicinity of clearly one of my neighbors without her thinking like, next year a documentary is gonna pop up on her Netflix algorithm called like The Walk By Boy, and it's just gonna be me like mugshot. And she's gonna call her friend like, I told you, and he almost got me too. I'm just having one of those moments where I felt so defeated and like, wait, what'd I do? Like, you ever have a moment where it's like, wait, what'd I even do? Cause like part of me almost kinda gets it. Like I don't imagine that I walk normal, you know? And I do walk a lot. Like, you're allowed to walk in your own neighborhood as much as you want though, right? Like, does it become loitering at a certain point? Do you think I'm on Nextdoor? Like, do you know that website where Republican people like get scared of their mailman or whatever? Am I like a disturbing presence to the community around me? Like, that's a real question. Not for you to answer. Don't answer that in the comments. That's not the question of the day. You know, sometimes something will happen and it's like, I either have to cry about this or somehow turn it into content. And one of those doesn't aggravate my sinus issues. So hit that like button. You know what I'm saying? You know what? I literally just realized she was flirting with me. That makes sense. Anyway, during all that, I figured out how to get my hands on some fun pills. The ones that don't take 6 to 8 weeks to kick in, if you know what I mean. Let me just say, I do realize it's not the greatest look to admit that you used psychiatrists to procure medications you knew you would abuse. I should be using personal pronouns, by the way. Me, I did that. I don't think you did that. Did you do that? Same. I know that doing that overall makes it harder for the people who need them or are going to use them as prescribed to get them. If you've gone into a doctor lately looking for like a refill on something you know that your body or mind needs and they kind of glance at you for a second like you're a junkie, that's my bad. Like, I did that, kind of. And the thing about this too is like I was able to get them because I am a candidate for these types of medications. I just use them incorrectly. I have a history of mental illness. Like, they could look through my file or whatever. It's not like I was normal Tyler Robinson waltzing in there with a button up and a briefcase and they're like, "Sir, this isn't the room for you." But I'll admit it, like, I found the doctors that would give me what I wanted. Like, I would take a $50 Uber ride to Beverly Hills, pay $200 in cash. I got my sleeping pills. No brother necessary. I got anxiety medication. I was seeing a psychiatrist who literally would give me different types of each of them all at once. I would go home feeling like I had hit the jackpot at Dave & Buster's. Like, you know when you'd leave someone's birthday party in like 2nd grade, but they were rich, like they had a 3-story and there were like 2 goodie bags? This is dark, but I would walk to the pharmacy across the street from his office and be blacked out by the time the $70 Uber took me home. It was $70 now because it's 5 o'clock, it's surge pricing. I don't think it would be the same now, by the way. Like, I'm pretty sure things are a lot more regulated than they were even in 2016. Like, I could be making this up, but it almost felt like there was an understanding between us. Like, I remember at one point, this psychiatrist asked me, he goes, "Do you have ADHD?" And he might as well have said, "You want some speed?" Does that sound fun for you? Like when you go to CVS and while you're checking out, they're like, "Have you heard of Care Pass?" Like, it was that vibe. I'm not exaggerating. I got amphetamines from him because he asked me, "Do you have ADHD?" And I was like, "I don't know, maybe. I've always kind of thought I did." And the only question he asked me, he goes, "Well, do you ever make piles?" And I was like, yeah, certainly made a few piles in my day. I mean, I don't put like everything I own parallel to each other. Like, is that what you mean? Can I have them? Again, years ago. Like, I haven't done it for a while, but from what I've heard, I'm pretty sure if you go into a doctor's office now and kind of hint that you might want Adderall, they just look at you and go, "Hey, I hate you. You're a rat. Lose my number and move to another city." And I remember I would take them, mix a couple energy drinks in there, sit at my desk, and just Family Guy clip after Family Guy clip. Like it was my job, like I was at work, just like, my life is wonderful. And I meant it. And I've always felt like maybe I have ADHD, and people diagnosed me in the comments, and that counts for something. I would bring the screenshots into my Beverly Hills psychiatrist. He said it counts as a referral. I don't really get it, because you know how people will say, like, if you have ADHD and you take ADHD medication, you don't feel like good, like nothing happens, you just feel normal. Is that real? Like, I'm not an expert on it, but when I would take it, like, I would definitely feel something. Sometimes I was taking like way too much of it, but even when I wasn't, like, I felt something, and if I don't have ADHD, and that's the proof that I don't, then what do I have? Also, if you want to hear about the time that I kind of accidentally took like 15 of the 30 milligram pills and had to go to the hospital, I talk about that on my Patreon. I know that's annoying, but I need money, and I'm afraid that YouTube isn't going to pay me for this video because I'm talking about stuff that's not tea. There's a few stories that I'll tell over there that are not tea. Also, I thought I was done with this part of the video, so I changed my shirt, but then I remembered I wanted to refilm something, and I wanted to say a few more things, and I put the shirt back on, and now it's inside out. So if you noticed that, and you thought you were going nutty boy, nah, I'm nutty boy. Does anyone else put their shirt inside out on Does anyone else put their shirt on inside out like somewhat often? I kind of hate it when people tell me that, like, "Oh, your shirt's inside out." I could have just never known that until I took a shower. Your shirt's inside out. okay? Like, what does that mean to you? Like, let's talk about it. Like, where are you at with my shirt? Like, let me go fix that so you can be more comfortable with something that clearly wasn't even a blip on my radar. But yeah, it was bad. I was mixing all of it as much as I could. I basically would have like 3 or 4 or 5 different controlled substance medications going at once at the pharmacy, and they would refill at different times of the month. And I would use smoking to just hold me over until I got what I really wanted. But even then, it would be gone in like 3 or 4 days because I would take all of them in a weekend, or like realize I was losing my mind and flush them and then be really mad at myself the next morning. I've never been so angry at somebody for flushing a toilet as myself the night before for flushing my favorite pills down the toilet. And again, I know this all sounds like so much when it's all laid out at once like this. I know it is, but like I wasn't taking a second to look around at what my life had become. Like I never was like, why am I flushing pills down a toilet? Like, am I a drug dealer in a thriller movie? I was constantly checking myself into the ER. Like I would take a bunch of pills, a giant weed brownie, a 6-pack of Red Bull or whatever, and all I remember from some of those hospital visits, one that really sticks out to me, I don't remember the whole night, ended up with the doctor screaming in my face, "Why do you keep coming here?" Like at the top of his lungs going, "You're high." And honestly, I still don't know who was right or wrong in that scenario. It's a complicated issue. And I do get that he has his perspective. Like I'm over here wigging out because of something that I did, and maybe I'm taking his attention away from someone who like got cancer for no reason. That being said, if you happen to be a nurse or a doctor watching this, it doesn't really help to be screamed at. Nobody's doing these kinds of things because they aren't completely traumatized and lost in their life. That doesn't mean you should excuse everything they do, but I've never been the type of person who is inspired by anger. In general, I think that the tough love approach only works if you believe that that person actually loves and cares about you. This is a scary story, so skip ahead if you're a baby, but one time I went to the hospital and because my heart rate would be like 160 or 170, like I'd be checking it, my blood pressure, and it would be high, so they'd like give me an EKG or whatever. And I was freaking out, like I asked the nurse, like, "Do you think I'm gonna die?" Just like small talk. And I think she said no, or like she wouldn't answer. And then I go, "Well, what do you say to somebody if you do think they're gonna die?" Like I imagine that that happens to her sometimes. And she answered me. She goes, "I just tell them to be with Jesus, honey." And I immediately was like, I actually didn't want to know that. Like, that's really chilling. And don't think that for the rest of the night, I wasn't like watching her mouth, seeing if it was about to form the words, "Go to Jesus," or was it "be with Jesus"? I made that story up. No, it's true. I would walk to the 24-hour pharmacy next to me at like 11:50 p.m. knowing that my prescription was about to be eligible for a refill. And the second the clock struck midnight, just walking in like a superstar. Like so excited I was shaking, but at the same time, trying my best to play it coy. Like I didn't have the generic name for all of the medications memorized. And like, wait, what is it? I think it's called Lorazza. I don't know. It's supposed to help me? Like as if I hadn't read the entire Wikipedia page for all of them. Like I was obsessed. I would look at pictures of my favorite pills when I couldn't get them. I remember I was at a house once with like a bunch of other YouTubers and ex-Viners who were like kind of at a similar level of deranged as I was at that point. Cause there's like tiers to it, you know? I was kind of like on the floor, almost crawling, and I just went, I think I'm too Xanaxed out. I gotta go home. And even in that moment, in my drowsiness, like my brain working at like 7%, I realized like, this is not cute at all. And I don't remember what they said. I think they were just like, you know, slay. It's hard because like there's a lot more that I could talk about, and even the stuff I've said already, but I have such mixed feelings about sharing all of this because like I really want to. I want to talk to you about what's happened in my life that I think is interesting or that I think I've learned from, and not just keep it buried inside of myself. And I know that there's people out there that will see it for what it is, and my heart, and my pain, and my actual feelings, but I also know there's always guaranteed to be a large mob of people who will just take everything I say and turn me into like another character in the soap opera. And maybe if you know that it's that way, you're kind of asking for it, but it's hard. Like we have all just perfected rapidly dehumanizing people all the time, and just like classify someone as either a small, perfect being that we all must protect, or like an evil monster with no good qualities, kill, kill, kill. Either way, you're not a human, and nobody is either of those, or we're all both, or whatever. But like, you know, there's things I want to talk about, but I don't want my pain to be turned into like a bullet point list on Reddit, you know? Anyway, the point is, there was a lot going on, and I'm not talking about all of it, but overall, I was a big mess. And by the way, keep in mind, at this point, during all of this thus far, I had never had a sip of alcohol. That was like my one boundary for myself that I think to me was like, I'm not fully losing it. I was. I literally got this tattoo. People look at it and say, oh, does that mean like glass half full? Why would I ever, like, what am I, a mom? I went to a urologist because I was peeing like way too much, and he told me, you drink too much caffeine, you should only drink water for the rest of your life. That's what he told me. And I was like, what about this? What about tea? What about kombucha? He was like, we don't really know about kombucha yet, and tea is a diuretic. Like, if you really want this to go away, only water. And I took that and I was like, I'm gonna get a tattoo of water, and also never alcohol is included in no water. So this was like my don't ever drink tattoo. Anyway, it basically just kept getting worse. In, I think 2018, I'd agreed to go on a tour with my friend Christine. We did take promo pictures, and I had signed the contract, we were selling tickets, and I was just having one of my weekends, you know, mixing everything together. And I think it was just like a big day for me, like a lot of prescriptions were overlapping. I had my hands on a lot of stuff, so it was like a lot of sleeping pills, and amphetamines, and anxiety pills, and weed, and energy drinks, and cigarettes, all at once. And I just remember I was in my room, and all of a sudden I just saw a man that I didn't know. And I had never like hallucinated like that before. I'd like hallucinated where like the rug kind of moved, like that was one of my hobbies, but I'd never like seen somebody, and I didn't, you know, when you hallucinate, you don't think that you're going crazy. I was just like, hey, who are you? Like, hey, why are you here? And like, I did what anyone who didn't realize they were losing it would do if you saw someone you didn't know in your room. I started knocking on all of my neighbors' doors and saying, help me, there's a man in my room. I basically just like had a psychotic break. And I'm pretty sure what caused it is me causing it through my continuous actions that were begging for that to happen. I think that might be it. I'm still looking into it. But it was most likely the fact that I was living my life as if I had read a WikiHow article called How to Have a Psychotic Break. Again, I only remember flashes of it, and even those I'm not sure if they actually happened or if I was imagining them. I do remember I was running around with one of my old iPhones that had broken like 3 years ago trying to get it to work. I'm pretty positive I went to Starbucks at one point and I was seeing like a big crowd of people I thought had followed me there. And then I remember I asked a woman if I could use her laptop because I was going to look my name up on Google to see if anyone was writing articles pertaining to the big crowd of people that had followed me to Starbucks, just so I could get some more information on that. And she said no. Straight up, like she set a boundary. I also did see on my call history later, I had used my actual phone to call 911, and I had talked to them for 10 minutes. I have no idea what happened, and I would hate to hear that recording. 10 minutes is like a long time to speak to a 911 operator. Like if you're talking to 911 for 10 minutes, you either died or you're me in 2017. Basically, I ended up calling a couple of my friends too, and I guess just not making sense, and they came over, and I was still kind of coming out of the blackout. I remember feeling pretty embarrassed still, and everyone like taking their turns. It was like pretty emotional. There was crying, and even then, I still was like, I hear you guys. I just remember saying, I get it, but I have to be honest, all I want to do is get high right now. And I know that's not cute. Like, I know that isn't charming. Like, that's frustrating. It's hurtful, you know, it is hurtful. So my family was staying with me for a few days at that point, and even after that, even after the intervention, somehow I still had a refill left. I walked to the pharmacy, got a bunch of pills, took like 7 of them, and I just remember it was barely working anymore. Like, it wasn't making me feel high, it was just making me feel kind of tired and a little bit confused. That's the main thing here. Like, I want to make this clear. I hope that nothing I'm saying is making somebody want to do any of this, because I know there's people that might just hear the slight positives and be like, I want to try. So much of my experience with all of this was working so hard and obsessing so much over getting what I thought I needed and would make me feel again, taking it or smoking it, and then just feeling heartbroken that it wasn't what I thought it was gonna be. Just feeling like slightly differently tired. Like thinking I was about to get numb, but actually just like getting confused and turning a movie on and going, what are they talking about? Or like thinking I was about to feel so euphoric, but like only getting a racing heartbeat. Like there were so many times that I would spend money, like spend a lot of my money and just end up like, okay, so I'm shaking and my heartbeat is really fast. Great, great. What a nice Friday. TGIF for sure. But I was like, okay, fine, I'll go to rehab. Because that's like what they were trying to get. I guess I left that part out, but that's like what an intervention is. They're like, go to rehab. They're like, go somewhere for an entire month where you don't get to do the thing that you really like to do. And you're like, no. And they're like, please. And you're like, no. But then hopefully after that, you're like, okay, fine. And I was like, okay, fine. But it better be fun. I made them promise it would be fun. It wasn't fun. I'm in front of my turtle tank and my turtle now. By the way, before I continue the story, let me just make a couple things clear before the reptile vigilantes start scratching away at my neck in the comments. My turtle is a red-eared slider. She has a basking area. I know you can't see it, but she has it and she loves it. Her tank is not chock full of a bunch of different things. She doesn't need a bunch of different things. She needs the swimming area. And besides, she has her favorite pumpkin, which she loves very, 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 very much. Oh my God. Oh my God, what are you doing? I've had her for 13 years. If you have any other problems with her, tell it to the turtle judge. She's green. Also, I got this on eBay. It's a boombox record player. They're very rare. They're from the 1980s. It's fully functional, except for that little door thing gets caught sometimes, but the tape player works too. I'm not selling it. I just want you to know that I have that. So yeah, I canceled the tour. I posted a vague Notes app update on my Twitter feed. I remember when I posted that, by the way, one person guessed right. Like one person commented or messaged me or whatever and was like, are you going to rehab? And I never let them know they were right. So if you're watching this now, you got me. I do feel bad for canceling that tour, by the way, but I really don't think it would have been worth your $40. Like, I really don't. Like, I'm overall very glad that those meet and greets never occurred. Like, there would have been a second intervention between me and the VIP ticket holders. And I know what you're thinking, Drew, you were gonna charge your viewers for meet and greets? I didn't know what I was doing. I was on drugs. What's Harry's excuse? Anyway, yeah, I went to rehab still high, still in like a blackout. By the way, I think I should explain this. When I say blackout, when you're blacked out on pills, it's not like you, like, I guess blacking out on anything. You don't just wake up and go, oh, where am I? I guess I blacked out. It's kind of like on day 3, you realize day 1 is foggy, and then on day 4, you realize day 1 and 2 are mostly gone, and then on day 5, days 1 through 4 are like leaving very soon. I remember I was pretty high. I know I said it didn't work, but like something happened, and they had me like in a room where like you meet with the person who's like admitting you. And I asked her, I was like, do I seem high? And I just remember she goes, you seem relaxed. And in that moment I was like, okay, I'm very high. No one's ever like, I met Drew, he's a relaxing guy. He's sort of like a massage. So first I went to detox. If you've never been before, you probably have. You're cuckoo. If you show up on drugs or drunk or whatever, first they let it out of your body before they let you in the rehab where everyone's like, clean. I hope all these details are interesting, by the way. Like, I just want to say the full thing. I don't know how to tell short stories. Like, I'm Drew Monson, baby. I'm not Edgar Allan Poe. So in the detox ward, I was pretty out of it. I was in a room with 2 uncomfortable beds, and it was me and this guy, like, in his 40s. And while you're sleeping, they have a person come in, like, every hour and a half and check your heart rate and your blood pressure and, like, how you're breathing. Which, like, sounds annoying, but, like, as somebody who slept in my parents' bed with them until I was, like, 10 and a half, a random man with a small ponytail wearing scrubs checking if my heart is still beating every 90 minutes is kind of my dream. Doesn't that sound nice? Like, you're kind of wanting to detox now, right? You should. And they had one of the guys who like ran the rehab come over to the detox, talk to me and sort of like recruit me, but he did it in this like salesman pitch kind of way. He like walked me over to the rehab area and was like, this is what you could have. There's a nice tree here. And he goes, and we've got real coffee here. Cause in the detox, they only had decaf. And he literally goes, and you can smoke. And he shows me the smoking area. He asked one of the, I swear on my life, he asked one of the people in the rehab that I wasn't in yet and said, give Drew a cigarette. And I think he just like watched me smoke and was like, this could all be yours. Like he was selling me a timeshare or something. But it worked. I went to the rehab and I had my family drop me off like 5 packs of cigarettes. I remember the first day I was in the smoking area and a guy who was also in rehab asked me for a cigarette. And I was like, okay, you know, I want friends. And then after I gave that guy a cigarette, another guy walked up to me and was like, hey, don't give him cigarettes. Like he was telling me not to feed the ducks or something. Oh, he can't digest those. By the way, ducks are on my mind because I walked by an apartment complex yesterday and there was 2 ducks just quacking at me, like intense quacking, like they were barking. And I looked up like, what do you feed ducks? Because I was on my way to the grocery store and it said you can give them oats. And I always buy oatmeal at the grocery store, so I was like, I might as well get some oatmeal and try and give them some. And they ate it. They liked it.
Wow, you're so smart.
Yeah.
But yeah, he explained to me like that guy asks everyone for cigarettes, like he's using you. And part of me was like, I know, I'm lonely. Like, hey, if that's what it's gonna take to get this 50-year-old bald man on my side, like, I'm trying to build a squad here. But yeah, I had no phone. It's the longest time since I got a phone that I haven't had a phone. Isn't it crazy that, like, that's the only time and way that anybody doesn't use their phone for an extended period of time? It's like, if you lose your mind or do a bunch of drugs. Otherwise, like, I mean, I can't think of another situation where that happens. They had like 3 or 4 computers that everybody had to share, but the problem was that the computer room was also the phone room, where they had like 2 landlines you could call your family and friends on. You'd have to just like kind of try to be private, sort of just like mutter in the corner while someone's Googling something, just like, I know, Grandma. No, but I'm in here so I won't die. Why are you crying, King? The internet they had, by the way, pretty much every website was blocked. It was like when you went on the school computer in 5th grade and it wouldn't let you play like Disney Channel games because they thought it was harmful, which it wasn't. It helped you. I think the only website where images would load was Wikipedia, which worked for me, honestly. Like, that's my favorite site. I basically spent those 30 days as much as I could just like, what else? Popcorn? I don't know that much about Popcorn. What's the history on her? I asked them why every website was blocked and they said it was because somebody tried to download the dark web and have drugs delivered to Rehab. Which, like, is a bad plan. Like, they had no system for receiving mail for the patients, but if they had accomplished that, that would have been the most impressive way anyone had ever gotten high. I made a few friends. There was this guy, one of the nicest things anyone's ever said or done for me. I think about it all the time still. I was so stressed out and I couldn't sleep and I was just like, losing it. I developed like a stress boil. I don't remember what it was called, but something was like on my lower back. I don't have like a super low pain tolerance. I'm kind of a baby, but I swear I couldn't sit without crying. I couldn't sleep. It hurt so bad. And I was just like sitting in the middle of like the rehab living room at 2 a.m. just sobbing, waiting to be eligible from the nurses for my next Tylenol dose. And this guy who was also in there with me walked up to me and he was like, hey, when I was a kid, I used to cry at night and nobody would come and help me or talk to me. And I promised myself that when I grew up, I would never let somebody else go through that. And it was so, I feel myself starting to cry. It was so sweet. What if I started crying right now and he walked up to me and he's like, I told you. And I started knocking on all my neighbors' doors and this cycle just started over again. By the way, if you're curious if my medium internet fame impacted my rehab stay at all, a little bit. And on like the visitation day where they let people's families or friends come, one of the guys there that was in the room that I slept in, by the way, I had to sleep in a room with like 8 different men. Which if you've never slept in a room with 8 different men, it is 8 different types of awful. I changed my mind about saying that while I was saying that. It kind of sounded like I was a character on the CW, but that's okay. But this guy was a dad and his daughter showed up on the visiting day and she knew who I was and he walked up to me in rehab and said, will you meet my daughter? My daughter wants to say hi to you. She knows who you are. And in my head, I'm like, don't do this to me. This is not okay. I hate this. But I said, if you can guess, oh, sure. And she came up to me and was like, I love your video. I don't remember what the conversation was, but that was my meet and greet. And I let her know afterwards, I'm like, this is normally like a $75 charge extra for the VIP. Do you even have a ticket? But can you imagine that? Like, what do you say? Like, I was nice or whatever, but in my head, I'm like, great, do you know what's happening right now? Like, you realize that I sleep in a wooden twin bed right next to your dad because we both just can't seem to get a handle on things. My favorite part of rehab, though, was there was a big TV in, like, the living room area with a big shelf of DVDs, and every night we would, like, democratically pick which movie to watch, and we'd have movie night. And I told my family, I made my family bring my copy of The Truman Show because I wanted to watch The Truman Show with everybody, but I just like put it on the shelf quietly and didn't tell anyone it was mine. And then when it was time one of the nights to vote for a movie, I was like, hey, what about The Truman Show? and it didn't get picked, they were like, I don't want to watch The Truman Show. And I was like, yeah. Me neither. So if you ever go to a rehab in Pasadena and there's a copy of The Truman Show, that's mytoecolds, honey. Give it a watch, it's got layers. The weirdest thing about being in rehab that I wasn't expecting is that I ended up with this insecurity that like I wasn't bad enough of an addict or even like interesting enough of one. Like I remember there was this one guy in the detox area, when I told him like what my favorite pills to take were, he was like, why do you do boring drugs? He was like, sleeping pills? I remember he literally went, if I ever see you when we're out of here like at CVS, I'm just gonna hand you some acid. Because like it got serious. I was putting my life or my brain at least in danger. Honestly, my life, because no matter what you're doing, if you're messed up enough, you could just fall down and hurt yourself really bad. Why was I smiling when I started saying that? But there's a level I stayed away from because I was too scared, like the ones that make people go, oh, you're like a bad one. And there is a part of me that's worried you might be watching this right now going like, oh, you think you're a drug addict? Shut your yap, I am. But I think that that type of thinking is somewhat common and something that keeps people from getting help. To feel like I'm not that bad, it's not that big of a deal. But if it's messing your life up and it's making you uncomfortable and scared, it's a huge deal. The stress alone of having an addiction, no matter what it is, can't be good for your body. Because there was like a few different people who, when I told them why I was there, they responded like, oh, you're not done yet. Like your bottom wasn't low enough, like you haven't been scared enough to stop. And that really annoyed me, like I didn't feel like they understood me or got why I was there or how seriously I felt like I was taking it, but they were right. I'm in front of my door now. I've run out of interesting places to film this video. We've reached the door portion, honey. By the way, is there anything better than this type of tape? Like this type of tape has been there for me since I was like 7 and it always does what it's supposed to do. Except like when what you're trying to hang up weighs more than like a small twig. Whoa. So yeah, I left rehab and I was basically out of money. Cause like I never became like a rich guy. Like some YouTubers you can tell like, oh, that's a rich guy. Like he's only showing you one of the rooms he lives in and he's making jokes about how like the world's in the toilet. But you like know the second he's done, he's like on the phone with his guy who like tells him when to invest in property or whatever. Like they said 1.5, why am I hearing 1.7? Sorry, can you hold 1 second? I just have to tweet that my life's a cuckoo mess. So like I've had tens and tens of thousands of dollars in my bank account. I'm not gonna lie, but I've never like had a net worth. I say all of this because I'm bitter about something that's my fault and also to explain why after rehab I was broke. And I had to leave. I had to move in with my family again and I was very, very depressed. Like I hated myself for it. I felt like I had come out to make something of myself and I kind of had, but I ruined it and it was embarrassing. And I stayed sober, but after a few months I started trying and I stayed sober, but after a few months, I started experimenting with weed again. I know this is probably frustrating to listen to, like I was frustrated with myself. And at this point too, like I could feel myself getting older. Like I think this happens to a lot of people, especially with weed. It's fun, it's weird, it is scary, but like fun and weird are winning. But the older you get, the ratio starts changing and scary starts winning. And it just became like a Russian roulette game where it's like, what are we gonna get this time? Is music going to sound better again? Or am I going to go through something inside of my brain that it takes me like a week to 7 years to recover from? And the back of the little vape cartridge does not give you the information on which one it's gonna be. And at a certain point for me, I think a lot of the craving too was like nostalgic. Like I think that I wanna be high, but what I really wanted to be was 21 and high. Like I wanna be getting high and not having feet that hurt all the time now for some reason. But there's no strain that can do that no matter what the CBD content is. Honey, turtle, she's over there. So I was like kind of sober, getting weed sometimes, but then going, oh, I can't do this anymore, never again. And then 2 weeks later, like, let me try one more time. But it wasn't like that often. And I came back to YouTube again. It went super well. I made a bunch of money. I paid a bunch of my hospital debt off. Not that I like want it to happen again, but I have to admit there is something that I would cherish about the relationship between me and my debt collectors. Like I felt so proud after they had called me like 80 weeks in a row to be like, it's Drew, the man you've been looking for, and I have what you want. And part of me wants to believe that they were proud too. I'm not kidding, like I was always looking for something in their voice that showed that like they always knew I could do this and I was the son they never had. But every time all they gave me was a confirmation number. But yeah, I was able to move out from my families. I was living alone again. This was like, I think, mid 2019. And then in like November of 2019, I learned something that I think a lot of people with a certain type of tattoo learn at some point. Which is like, I got this because I thought it would stop me from doing something bad, but at the end of the day, if I'm committed to destroying myself, this little bit of ink on my shoulder isn't as powerful as I want it to be. But alcohol sucks. Like, it's the worst one. I haven't tried all of them, but I'm pretty sure it's the worst one as far as like what you get versus what happens to your body, mind, and soul. It's just pure evil, like honestly, like you rarely hear people defending it. Like if you talk down to weed, there's gonna be some people that are mad at you. I'm sure there might be a few in my comment section right now. Check it out, defend me. But if you say alcohol sucks, nobody bats an eye. Everyone's like, yes, yes. The drinkers, the non-drinkers, everyone just looks at you and goes, yes, it does. My experience with it was so dumb too. Like, I didn't know how to drink or really anything about it. And I had heard about seltzers and I was like, oh, this will just taste like soda or whatever. And within like 3 months, I was drinking between 16 and 20 hard seltzers a day. This is getting too serious and sad again. I'm back on the SpongeBob joke website. I'm just gonna read a SpongeBob joke whenever it gets too sad. Thank you, scarymommy.com, for the content. Why was Mr. Krabs so stingy? He's shellfish. I don't like that. He actually has financial trauma. He was born during the 1930s depression. No matter how much he earns, he feels like he has nothing at all. But go off, scary mommy. I would start drinking when I woke up at like 7 a.m. I would stop when I was about to fall asleep. And I mostly kept drinking because very quickly into drinking a lot, your tolerance goes up so fast. I was basically just drinking because I was terrified to stop drinking. If you don't know, alcohol, benzodiazepines, and I think opiates are the only drugs you can die from stopping. And by the way, if you struggle with those things, look it up. Like, talk to a doctor. I don't know all the specifics. Everyone is different. I know at least one person heard me say that just now and was like, so you're saying it's good for me? 99% of my drinking was alone. I was just like sitting, listening to my noise canceling headphones and texting. It messes with literally every single part of your body from like up here to down there. Like from your hair to your brain to your stomach, starts hurting more, stops working as well. And it was the height of the pandemic, and I was actually agoraphobic. And I say actually agoraphobic because what sucks about stuff like that, like very serious mental things, more commonly being used as like kind of relatable hyperbolic statements in memes, is that when it actually happens to you, you become like the person who cried wolf. Like when I told people I literally can't leave my house, they'd be like, same. No, same. Literally same. And you think you have like a partner in crime, and the next day they're like, just got back from lunch with my friends. And you're like, oh, no, I meant like zero. Like I zero leave the house. Like not 1 or 2, like 0. Like I didn't do anything for like 9 months. And I mean anything. Like I know that it was like the pandemic and people were doing almost nothing, but like I couldn't even walk to the store with a mask on without feeling like I was about to faint. What did SpongeBob say after complimenting Mr. Krabs' daughter? You're welcome. Leave Pearl alone. You know what I mean? At this point, like it's been 25 years. Leave Pearl alone. She's the biggest character, sure, I'll admit that. But do we have to harp on the whale thing? She's also a woman, you know what I mean? She's an athlete. Also this is actually on here. What kind of tea do SpongeBob and Patrick drink? Pearl Grey. Am I wrong that that's like sinister? Like I don't like what that implies. Like can Pearl catch a break? Like that's a real question. We're drinking her now? That's where we're at? We're sipping on her? With no consequences? I convinced myself I had a bunch of different diseases because like my abdomen would hurt from like acid reflux or whatever, and I would Google it and it would be like, maybe indigestion, maybe kidney failure. And if you're like me, you read that and you're like, indigestion, what am I, boring? Like if there's anything I know about my life, it's that it sucks and it's also dramatic and interesting. I also thought I had diabetes, so I was buying those test strips and like poking myself with the needle thing. I always had tiny little holes on all my fingers. One of the weird things I did during that time that I think somehow helped me was I was always talking to myself, and I started having this like running monologue to myself. Like I'd be taking a shower and I would start, I don't know how to explain it. It was like I would talk to myself as if the present was the past and I was being interviewed about the past that was my present. So I'd be like scrubbing my shoulders. That's just something I do a lot. They get really, really dirty. I'm just going like, yeah, I couldn't leave the house. No, it was terrible. I would throw up when I would get scared. Yeah, I was throwing up every day. And like, I was talking about today, but somehow that gave me hope. And I would just like daydream about when I would be able to do these mundane things I had taken for granted again. Like I couldn't wait until I would be able to go to Target, purchase paper towels, and be disappointed by their dollar section in the front again. Cause it's worse than it used to be, right? Like it used to be like cute stocking stuffers and now it's just toys that nobody would ever want. But I'm a big believer in daydreaming. Like I think it can save your life. Like it's the most optimistic thing you can do. Like you're probably daydreaming about me right now and don't discount that. That's healthy. And then when I was finally able to go to a doctor again, they took my vitamin levels from my blood and I had super low B1. By the way, if you're an alcoholic, there's nothing I can do for you really from this video, but if anything, get yourself some Flintstones gummies. So yeah, I stopped drinking on my own very, very slowly. I should have gone to rehab, but I didn't. My entire relationship to alcohol lasted about a full year. I don't miss it at all, and I never want to have it again. And when I happen to walk by the alcohol section of a grocery store and I look at the strawberry lemonade Truly just sitting there, I feel like I'm seeing my ex. I can still remember exactly how those burps tasted, and I had so many of them and wish I had none. But I did it, and I came back to YouTube, and again, I was vague about why I left, and it went very well, and I was making lots of money again, and I got exhausted, and I was very stressed out, and then the final part of this story happened. I swear it's the last part. I'm not kidding when I say this. I'm in my kitchen right now. And I know what you're thinking, is that your kitchen or did you break into somebody's house? Because you wanted us to think that you own a cast iron when deep down you're a non-stick Nancy. No, 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 stop saying it, it isn't true. Also, I have to be honest here, I'm sitting on my chair that has a bird on it. Do you think that the bird that inspired the painting that they put on this chair knows that it became a chair? By the way, you know when you're turning off your fan and you get impatient waiting for it to stop spinning, so you just grab it like it's been misbehaving, but then you get a bunch of unwanted dust all over your fingers? Do you wash your hands when that happens? Because I just did, and I'm wondering if you take care of yourself like I do. Anyway, Tyler, I'm gonna keep this last one short. Last year, I started smoking the hee again, which left me with an amount of anxiety, dread, and self-hatred that I only knew how to remedy with getting addicted for real this time to anxiety medication. How's that for ha ha ha? Like I said, I used to be more of a weekend binger. I had never used benzos so regularly and consistently before. Luckily, it only lasted like 3 or 4 months, but I feel so much for anyone out there who has gone through that addiction. It's like the idea of the pills burrowed themselves deep inside my brain, and every action or thought I had pertained to them. And like, I was miserable, but I also couldn't fathom a world where I wouldn't want them more than anything else in it. It's like you with your ex. Trigger warning here for eating issues, but I was also binge eating more than I ever had. Like binge eating a lot when high, kind of forgetting about it, waking up, watching my body change slowly, not feeling like myself anymore, and then getting more and more high in order to match that feeling of not feeling like myself, and the cycle just continues and continues. I will say though, out of every problem I've ever had, binge eating tastes the best. Like all of its issues aside, if you eat like a pint and a half of ice cream every day for a month, it still tastes like ice cream. Very much so. There's no like tolerance to peanut butter cups, you know what I mean? Getting off of benzos psychologically was the worst experience I've had with any substance. I literally couldn't do anything without sobbing. Like I would go to the grocery store thinking I was fine, like okay, I think I'm done crying for the day. Walk in and just start crying, but be so anxious at the same time, like a panic attack crying combo, that I wouldn't know how to leave the grocery store. So one time I just sat, there was like a seat next to the bathroom at the grocery store, and I was just sobbing violently for no actual reason. Like there wasn't even a thought I could point to that started it. It was just constant, and I was looking around to see if anyone noticed, kind of because I was embarrassed, but kind of because, you know, if you're crying in public, you sort of want somebody to see it and acknowledge it and kind of look at you and go, pain, that's pain, I see pain, so you can be like, I knew it. And there was this guy like browsing the frozen french fries section, as you do, and I could tell he like noticed me. Like he was like 20 feet away from me, and we weren't admitting it outright, but it was clear that by staying there for about a minute, he was saying like, I'm here for you, kind of. Or that's what I was choosing to believe, because it really only takes like 20 seconds tops to choose a type of frozen French fry, right? Like, I'm not reading into this, am I? Because, like, how many options are there? You got steak, shoestring, waffle, curly, and crinkle. He loved me. By the way, why do all of the experiences in my life that end up resonating with me the most somehow involve a man taking care of me emotionally? See this, call me and apologize. And is that my dad's fault? You know what I mean? Dad, if you see this, call me and apologize. I'm serious. But yeah, I stopped again, and I have been actually 100% sober this time for almost 6 months now. And I'm back here again now, and this time I wanted to tell you that's where I went, and that's where I've been going. And I'm working pretty hard to not go there again. And it's really, really difficult, you know, I'll be honest, but it's what I want. And if you've chosen to watch this all the way through and hear me out, I'm so grateful to you for that. I'm not an authority on any of this stuff, but if you're somebody who is using substances in a way that's ruining your life or even just making you uncomfortable, I really hope that you can find a reason to stop, or at least try to stop being as mean to yourself as I know you are, because I know from so many experiences that at least a fraction of that meanness has to settle down a little bit in order to start stopping. And I don't know, I hope that tomorrow you can use even one less of whatever it is, because that's something. Again, and I know I'm being defensive, but I just want to say I know there's a lot of stigma around addicts and alcoholics, because like your parents or somebody that you genuinely cared about and for was or is an addict and hurt you because of it, and you're kind of sick of seeing people get praised for it or forgiven for doing that. It's such a complicated thing, you know, because addiction does hurt everybody, even if it's just with like the intense selfishness that ripples across your friend and family circle. And I talk about this because I think about it a lot. And there's a lot of judgment out there. There's a lot of stigma out there. And like I'm saying, I do understand it, but I also see people who seem to delight in getting angry and hating addicts. And there's support groups all around the world or whatever, but I think there also has to be pieces of media that just see you and don't judge you. And I make this video because I want to talk about what I've been going through, but also because I want it to be one of those, hopefully. Because like, I literally am unable to judge addicts, like even though I'm afraid that you're going to judge me, because like I literally am unable to judge addicts, you know, like that wouldn't make any sense for me to sit here and be like, you ever meet one of those people who's like done a bunch of drugs before and is wearing a beanie right now and just raised their finger up kind of in line with their cheekbone and now it's going in a circle? And I think that some people disagree with this, but I do believe the studies that say that there are some people that are just predisposed to be an addict. Because doesn't that make sense? Like, knowing how different all of our brains and bodies are, that two people could try the exact same thing on one random night or be prescribed it even by a doctor that they trust, and one of them will be like, okay, done with that, and the other will be like, I don't know what's happening to me right now, but that's all I want forever. You could just say that one of them is stronger or smarter or less lazy than the other, but I think that that would be a complete lie. And I didn't talk about this when I was speaking on my drinking issues, but when I was at my lowest with like alcoholism and I just wanted to die and my body hurt all of the time and I didn't know why I was here and it just sucked, that was the exact moment that all of these videos started being made about me and my life and things I had been through that I didn't even want to think about or hadn't even like reckoned with inside of myself, and it felt like everybody was talking about my life for me. And I understand that that's totally fair game, but I so badly wanted to turn it off, and honestly I got really angry, and that's why I kind of lash out against like commentary YouTubers and online gossip and TikTok and all that stuff, because it felt like such a threat to my well-being when I really didn't need any more threats. You know, sometimes people will say to me like, I don't know how you do YouTube videos and I wouldn't want people looking at me and all that stuff, and I was always like, no, I asked for it, that's what I wanted and I got it, even if it's hard, it's not a real job, I'm just lucky, I need to shut up. But now when I really think about it, and I have been thinking about it lately, if the question is, I don't know how you deal with all of that. The answer is I became a drug addict. I mean, I think I was also predisposed to it, but if you look at the timeline, like the two events correlate pretty heavily. And I do like attention, you know, I like that you're watching this video right now. Like, I'm gonna get closer, take a good look at me, Tyler. But you can't turn it off, and you don't know when it's just gonna start swelling up out of nowhere. And I always worry about what you're gonna think of me, and that's a big reason I didn't make this video until now. I'm worried that you're gonna judge me for being an addict. I'm worried that some of you will judge me for not being bad enough of an addict. Like I've said so many times throughout this video, I know it looks crazy when you lay it all out like this. When you chart out all the ups and downs and the over and overs all at once, it looks nuts. I know that. It's a summary of a bunch of madness, you know, and a summary is really all that most people who know of you will ever get of your life, and all they will be able to understand of your life is what it looks like when you explain it to them yourself, like I just did to you. And it can look crazy or whatever, but I also know from experience that within that summary, and every summary, is a bunch of moments that really make sense within themselves. And a bunch of choices that might look nuts or lazy or stupid from the outside, but during them felt completely inevitable. And like the only option or the only thing that you deserve. When I've been feeling bad lately, I've been trying, not always succeeding, but really trying to just go, okay, this is something that happens. And that sucks, but that is more normal than I want to appreciate right now. And that is life, and there's no version of life that doesn't contain this feeling. Because desperately trying to run away from this feeling every time that it comes up and not see it as a part of my life, but see it as something to hide away from, is what has gotten me in trouble over and over again. Is this moment where I have chosen wrong so many times in my reaction to this feeling. And usually when I really look at it, I feel that way because I'm exhausted. I haven't eaten enough. I haven't slept enough. I bet that you right now are going through something that is eating you up more than you even want to admit. And eventually you might hit a point where you act out, you're irritable, your body feels weird, and you don't even realize that's why. Because that still happens to me. I'm all over the place right now, but you see what I'm saying? I am trying to have that moment and not then use a substance in the wrong way to cope with it. But to just like literally hold on, like that's all I've got sometimes. To hold on and recognize it's not going to be pretty, attempt to relax myself, and even if I'm not able to do that, acknowledge that numbing myself into oblivion, or giving myself artificial energy while I watch Family Guy clips, or dumping naughty oil on my pasta is not gonna make it go away. It's gonna make it come back stronger than before. And it's most likely not even gonna be as good as I'm fantasizing for it to be. I've been trying to not make that choice no matter how much sense I think it makes, and to just hold on instead, and to just say, what kind of music does SpongeBob listen to when he goes jellyfishing? Something catchy. I memorized that one. Thank you.
Leave me a comment, I'm very lonely. Leave me a comment, I'm very lonely. Thanks for watching all the way through, for real. I hope you listen to my album. I really think it's good. I don't want to beg. But you already watched this, so like, that's cool. That's payment enough. And you do owe me money, don't get it twisted. Sir. No, just kidding, that was me. Or whoever lives in here. Because sometimes it feels like you black out a little bit, and it's like, who did that? But we'll talk about that next week. Thank you. I'm sick, by the way. I filmed this video over a few different days, if you couldn't tell by my beard length changing. But I'm a little sick, so what are you gonna do about that? How are you gonna help? Leave a comment down below. I'm very lonely. Let me know how you'll heal me. Are my eyes open? Okay, bye.